Good morning from Washington, D.C., and thank you for joining our live stream of the Open Doors 2020 report on international educational exchange. It is an honor to be here in the company of Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Matthew Lussenhop and to be with IIE's Research, Evaluation, and Learning team to share data from our 71st Open Doors survey. COVID-19 is the 12th pandemic in IIE's 101-year history. We have tracked academic mobility data during all of them, and while pandemics cause tremendous hardship and disruption, there are also strong reasons for optimism. After each, international educational exchange rapidly resumes, and the number of students involved also grows substantially. There are three main reasons. Study abroad is part of a long-term planning process. Students seeking the opportunity are indeed able to adjust to all sorts of circumstances. They are greatly helped, of course, by the legions of dedicated advisors on campus and worldwide, especially those manning the desks of the Department of State's Education USA advising centers around the world. Students are also presented with a myriad of flexible options for overseas study that are allowing them to begin or complete their education in the face of disruption. U.S. higher education institutions have strong and enduring international partnerships that have proven over time extraordinarily resilient in all types of emergency situations. In fact, situations like this may reinforce the need for global research cooperation and student exchanges. Finally, universities have made internationalization part of their foreign policy for decades. When there are pandemics and other types of crises, universities work that much harder to keep academic doors open and exchanges flowing when it is safe and practical to do so. Our data shows that they have not and will not give up on their goals of supporting international students and study abroad. Today's presentations will focus on three distinct sets of data: international student flows to the United States during the 2019-2020 academic year, then study abroad by U.S. students completed and awarded academic credit for the academic year ending with the 2019 summer semester, and then results from a survey this fall of more than 700 U.S. universities to gauge their international student enrollment data and long-term commitment to internationalization in the midst of this pandemic. I mentioned that this pandemic is number 12. Looking back at previous pandemics, I'm struck by how little attention they received in IIE's annual reports. This is largely because the post-pandemic challenges actually turned out to be more significant by accommodating the surge in new international students and supporting and responding to the pent-up demand for study abroad from Americans. We are actually getting ready for that at the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs and at IIE. Every week is International Education Week. It is now my pleasure to introduce Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Matthew Lussenhop to give opening remarks.
Good morning. Welcome to International Education Week 2020. Thank you for joining us. This year is the 21st celebration of International Education Week, a joint initiative of the U.S. Departments of State and Education to highlight the benefits of international education and exchange. To kick off our event today, I am pleased to share with you messages from U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and U.S. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos.
Hello, everyone. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo here. I'm glad to mark the International Education Week alongside Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. And I'm proud, too, that America remains the world's #1 destination for students seeking an international education. Our nation's academic excellence shines brightly. They see it. Students everywhere want to experience it for themselves and study at the best universities in the world, where we treasure the free exchange of ideas. We want outstanding students to keep studying here and to keep learning the founding ideals that made our country so great. Look, I'm also proud of American students that choose to study abroad. They're powerful ambassadors for our nation and for our values. Their experiences often lay foundations for careers representing our country as American diplomats, soldiers, aid workers, businessmen and women, and in many other fields. Sadly, the pandemic stopped a lot of international travel, but Americans' drive to explore, exchange ideas, and learn about the world won't wane. It's critical. It's critical to America's success that we harness that enthusiasm. We need more of our students to study internationally and share American values with their peers. The State Department is here to help, including by supporting the study of critical languages like Mandarin, Russian, Arabic, Farsi, and Hindi. Students should go to languages.state.gov to see how they can take advantage of these programs and tell the great American story abroad. And to America's educators, please maintain maximum study abroad opportunities for American students. Their opportunity, their exposure to the wider world bolsters the United States' long-term competitive edge and our global leadership. By giving them the right opportunities, we can all help build a stronger America and a freer, safer, and more prosperous world. Thank you, and God bless you.
Hello, I'm Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Each year at this time, we highlight the benefits of international education and exchange around the world. This year, we must acknowledge that some of our more traditional paths to international exchange are not available to many students. We can rise to the challenges ahead of us by rethinking international education. Now more than ever, students and families need freedom to find the right learning environment for them, to pursue the education that will unlock their potential and unleash their creativity. When America's students have opportunities to engage with others around the world, we all benefit. Acquiring global and cultural competencies, including critical thinking, communication, knowledge of different cultures, and fluency in multiple languages, are invaluable. These skills are developed and honed over a lifetime, and learning them can begin at home. Through virtual international exchange, students across the country can learn from and with students all over the world in fields as diverse as robotics, healthcare, fashion, and finance. Exchanges like these not only give students an opportunity to deepen their knowledge of a chosen field, they also help develop their toolbox of global competencies. When students are prepared to engage with their counterparts at home and across the globe, we are all better for it. Thank you.
As you've just heard, the United States is committed to international education, including by expanding opportunities for more Americans from diverse backgrounds to take part in study abroad, and by welcoming more international students to our classrooms so they can learn alongside their American peers and gain an appreciation for American values while also sharing their views and cultures with us. For more on the importance of international students for the United States, I turn to my boss, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs, Marie Royce.
Happy International Education Week 2020. I'm Marie Royce, Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs. During International Education Week, the U.S. Departments of State and Education join schools, universities, and communities around the world to promote the importance of international education. This year, our theme is Engaged, Resilient, Global. Around the world, we are experiencing unprecedented challenges. But despite these obstacles, we at the U.S. Department of State remain engaged. We are helping international students to study in the United States and American students to study abroad. Through our Education USA network, over 550 dedicated advisors in more than 175 countries are helping international students find their best fit at an American college or university. We remain resilient. We're committed to working with U.S. institutions to ensure that international students continue to enrich our classrooms, form lifelong bonds with Americans, foster stronger business, scientific, and diplomatic ties, and gain insights into American culture and ideals. And we remain global. Our message is loud and clear. We welcome students from around the world to our schools, and our communities. As President Trump said, our universities are available. The world comes in. They use our universities. We have the greatest system in the world. International Education Week celebrates all the students and scholars who are eager to learn new languages, understand new customs, master new skills, and build new partnerships. Join us as we celebrate international education and invest in our future leaders.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Royce. So we are here today to share the release of the 2020 Open Doors Report on International Student Mobility and to highlight our commitment to international education. The Open Doors Report is the premier source of data on international student mobility trends and is an essential tool for the U.S. and foreign governments, the private sector, and U.S. higher education on the academic, economic, and diplomatic impacts of student mobility. Open Doors informs higher education strategies for international engagement, foreign government decisions about scholarship programs, and our whole-of-government approach to student mobility here at home in the United States. So I'd like to thank Alan Goodman and the incredible team at the Institute of International Education for their work on the 2020 Open Doors Report. IIE worked tirelessly to collect, analyze, and prepare the 2020 Open Doors student mobility data. While preparing this report, IIE's team also launched 3 short surveys on U.S. higher education response to the global pandemic and conducted the 2020 Fall Snapshot so we can better understand the impact the pandemic is having on international student mobility to and from the United States at this time. So congratulations to IIE on this truly tremendous work. I'm pleased to announce that 2019-2020 is the 5th consecutive year the U.S. welcomed over 1 million international students to study on our campuses and engage with our communities. And we're similarly pleased with the steady growth in U.S. study abroad, with over 347,000 American students studying abroad in 2018-2019. We're also seeing a greater diversity among American students who study abroad, more fully representing American society overall. International educational experiences provide young Americans with the critical skills and knowledge necessary to compete in a global society. There are myriad privately supported study abroad programs through colleges and universities across the country. And the State Department exchanges, like the Fulbright program, the Benjamin A. Gilman program, provide American students with life-changing international exchange experiences. The State Department remains committed to supporting more Americans in studying abroad, gaining critical intercultural skills, and learning foreign languages. Last month, Secretary Pompeo announced the launch of a new website, languages.state.gov, to highlight the value of foreign language skills and to provide American students with an easy way to search U.S. government resources and find the best opportunity for foreign language study. David Agranovich, for example, an American alumnus of our Critical Language Scholarship Program, currently uses the Russian language skills that he honed during the program as the lead for global threat disruption at Facebook, after previous stints at the Department of Defense and the National Security Council. Of his CLS experience, David remarked, "My time in Russia enabled me to achieve functional proficiency in Russian and continue studying the language until I had achieved full professional proficiency. Were it not for CLS, I may never have been able to achieve this level of fluency." And for those students, U.S. students, who are unable to study abroad, learning alongside international students in the classroom here at home helps them expand their horizons and explore new viewpoints. And we want to see qualified international students enrich our campuses and communities all across the United States. As the Open Doors report indicates, for the 5th consecutive year, the U.S. remains the top destination for international students, far outpacing our competitors, and hosting a truly global array of students from all over the world, with China, India, and South Korea remaining the top 3 sending countries. International students contribute $44 billion to the U.S. economy and support over 450,000 American jobs. They live and study alongside Americans, building lifelong personal and professional relationships that will form the basis of future relations in business, trade, science, innovation, arts and culture, and diplomacy between the United States and countries all around the globe. As President Trump has stated, our universities are available. The world comes in, they use our universities. We have the greatest system in the world. Over the past year, the Trump administration has invested more in educational advising through the State Department's Education USA network than any administration in history. And these investments will help maintain and grow the U.S. as the top host nation for international students. We are expanding our outreach to the U.S. higher education community here at home and to foreign governments, high school counselors and prospective students and their parents abroad, including through a global marketing campaign that we have just piloted in 3 countries overseas and will expand in 2021. International students benefit from study in the United States and contribute to the U.S. by building the bridges that will grow and sustain our people-to-people ties for generations to come. The United States has the largest, most diverse higher education sector in the planet, through which students can achieve their dreams in any discipline they choose, and we are a nation where a scientific patent still means something. Students coming to the United States gain firsthand evidence of core American values like academic freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the rule of law across our campuses and communities each and every day. So while there are those, like the Chinese Communist Party, who attempt to exploit the open, transparent, and collaborative nature of the U.S. higher education sector, both the U.S. government and the higher education community have responded by reasserting our unequivocal welcome to illegitimate students and by enhancing campus policies and protocols that safeguard sensitive intellectual property. As the U.S. government has noted, our American higher education sector has taken effective self-directed action to address this real and urgent threat from the CCP. And at the same time, we've taken action to protect against military-affiliated Chinese researchers who seek to take advantage of our academic system. And our approach to identifying problematic cases has been targeted and impacts only a very small fraction of the total number of Chinese students who seek to study in the United States. Chinese students and students the world over value the quality of an American education, including our commitment to upholding core American values like academic freedom. And we, in turn, deeply value the many contributions all international students make to our nation. The State Department's commitment to continued student mobility has been underscored by innovation and action over the past year in partnership with the higher education community, as we now find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic, responding to unprecedented challenges and adapting to unparalleled obstacles. We remain committed to welcoming qualified international students when and where it is safe to do so. The 2020 Open Doors report illustrates the strong and consistent level of interest among international students in a U.S. education prior to the pandemic. And this interest continues unabated. Since the pandemic, the State Department's Education USA network of over 430 education advising centers around the world has shifted online and expanded our global virtual programming, where we have seen an over 20% increase in social media engagement, with our centers making over 3 million direct contacts per month while maintaining a consistent social media following of over 5 million. For example, last month, Education USA advising centers across South Asia hosted a 4-day virtual fair for prospective students, attracting a record number of nearly 26,000 registrants, as well as 150 higher education institutions from the U.S. The fair focused on recruiting participation from students in India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Afghanistan, but the event attracted a wide diversity of participants. Students not only hailed from over 250 cities in India, but across the entire South Asia region, and then more than 55 countries worldwide. Later this week, we are excited to host the Education USA Sub-Saharan African Virtual Student Recruitment Fair on November 18th and 19th as part of this year's IEW celebration. 54 Education USA advising centers across the continent are actively promoting this online event for prospective students, and interest among the U.S. colleges and universities has been so great that the event has reached capacity and we've closed registration ahead of the deadline. During today's presentation, IIE will provide an overview of the recent fall snapshot and offer preliminary insights into fall 2020 enrollment. Overall, the snapshot survey shows the total number of international students enrolled in the United States declined by 16% in fall 2020. This decline was driven primarily by a 43% decrease in new enrollments, including students both physically present in the U.S. as well as those studying online in advance of coming to the United States to complete their degrees. Tens of thousands of additional international students have deferred their fall 2020 admissions with expectations to study in the United States in the future. U.S. academic institutions provide access to a world-class education and top-notch labs, facilities, and student services, as well as academic freedom, the freedom to express dissent, the freedom to succeed based on individual merit, and the freedom to achieve your dreams. U.S. colleges and universities reacted swiftly to the global pandemic, shifting classes online almost overnight to ensure the safety of students, faculty, and administrators, while maintaining the continuity and quality of instruction in a welcoming environment that remains open to students from across the globe. This fall, these same institutions made difficult decisions regarding how to reopen, with some opening in person, others operating fully online, and many choosing a hybrid option, all while advancing the goals of providing quality instruction safely to domestic and international students alike. For example, we know that international students at Florida Institute of Technology were disrupted by the campus closure earlier this spring and were concerned about finding housing. As so many of your campuses did, Florida Institute of Technology allowed students to remain in campus housing into the fall. Similarly, UC San Diego has created a virtual student union and other online services to ensure that international students have access to not only academic guidance, but also health professionals and other campus services, regardless of where their students are located. These responses exemplify what makes U.S. higher education the best in the world: your commitment to serving students from across the globe. U.S. colleges and universities are also upping their outreach game, keeping their eyes on the horizon. Now, our recent Education USA Forum, held online for the first time, attracted nearly 2,500 registrants from across U.S. higher education, compared to the 500 who normally attend in person. IIE's fall snapshot tells us that 74% of institutions have increased their online recruitment for future semesters, and 64% of institutions are reporting that funding for future outreach remains at the same level or higher than previously planned. And while many other nations closed their doors, America remained open, allowing international students to remain in the United States to continue their studies, joined by many newly admitted international students who could safely travel to campuses across the country. Our colleagues at U.S. embassies and consulates are prioritizing the processing of student visas as much as is possible given local conditions, and going to tremendous lengths to support international students who seek to study in the United States. In Paraguay, for example, Our colleagues in the U.S. Consular Section provided emergency visa appointments for 7 local Education USA Opportunity Funds students. And after receiving their visas, these students were personally accompanied to the airport in Asuncion by U.S. Ambassador Lee McClenny, and then escorted all the way to Miami on a chartered humanitarian flight by embassy staff so that they could make connections to their flights and begin their studies at U.S. colleges and universities across the country. Currently, U.S. missions in nearly 24 of the top sending countries of international students have fully or partially opened and are processing J and F visas as efficiently as possible while abiding by local guidelines to protect the health and safety of our consular colleagues and visa applicants. Now, as I mentioned, IIE's fall snapshot indicates that tens of thousands of international students are also waiting in the wings to study in the United States as soon as conditions allow. And we are eager to welcome these students so they can pursue their dreams of becoming the future leaders, diplomats, scientists, artists, and entrepreneurs who will rise to shape our shared global future. Now, as we all work to emerge from the current crisis, it's more important than ever that we continue to build the bridges today that will support American and global prosperity and security into the future. International education, both welcoming international students to the United States and encouraging more young Americans to experience the world through study abroad, remains a cornerstone of our efforts.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Open Doors live stream. My name is Mirka Martel, Head of Research, Evaluation, and Learning at IIE. I am joined today by Julie Baer, Research Specialist, and Leah Mason, Research Lead. Together, we will be presenting the Open Doors presentation. I will begin the presentation with data on international students in the United States. Let's start by providing an overview of the International Census. First, who received the survey? The Open Doors International Census surveyed over 2,900 U.S. higher education institutions that reported hosting international students in the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, or SEVIS. We benefit from the consistent, robust responses we receive each year from higher education institutions around the country. Next, who did we count in the census? We collected data on non-immigrant international students in the United States on temporary visas. Finally, what time frame did the data reflect? We collected data from U.S. institutions as of fall 2019 to reflect the 2019-20 academic year. We note that this year's data did not yet reflect the effects of COVID-19 on international students at U.S. higher education institutions. The data we present today does provide a necessary baseline before the COVID-19 pandemic and will allow us to compare international student trends that we will see next year. We want to highlight that U.S. higher education institutions in Open Doors represent every state and territory, public and private institutions. We have institutions that have reported on Open Doors for over 70 years, a testament to the importance of this data for the U.S. higher education community and the world. And now to the data for 2019-20. For the 5th year in a row, the total number of international students in the United States exceeded 1 million to 1,075,496. International students in the United States declined by 1.8% from the previous year. Since 2000, we have seen 20 years of robust growth of international students in the United States. Over the past 10 years, the number has nearly doubled. While we have seen a slowing of this growth in the past 5 years, the U.S. remains the #1 host of international students worldwide. Most international students in the United States studied at the undergraduate and graduate levels. The number of enrolled international students in undergraduate, graduate, and non-degree programs decreased by 2%. Many factors explain the enrolled student decline, including increased global competition, expanding educational capacity in home countries, shifting demographics, and government scholarship programs. Over 220,000 international students in the United States were on optional practical training, or OPT. Recent increases in OPT have eased, and this year OPT increased slightly by 0.2%. Despite this leveling, the total number of OPT students are at much higher levels than in previous years. OPT continues to be a welcome opportunity for students to gain practical work experience in their field of study after their degree program for 12 months and up to 36 months for STEM majors. We see a better picture of international students enrolling for the first time at a U.S. institution, a subset of total enrollments. 2 years ago, new enrollments declined by almost 7%. This year, new enrollment declined by approximately 0.6%, so we see an improvement in this trend. This is due to the extensive efforts that U.S. higher education institutions continue to make to attract and welcome international students to their campuses. It is important to note that the decreases in total enrollments are primarily due to recent decreases in new enrollments, as seen in this chart. In comparison to 5 years ago, when new students made up 30% of all international students, in 2019-20, 1 in 4 students, or 25%, is a new student. As a result, total enrollment numbers are affected by the lower numbers of students entering the system. This year, international students in the United States came from over 200 places of origin. The top 3 places of origin continue to be China, India, and South Korea. China and India made up almost 53% of the total international student population in the United States. As we include the top 25 places of origin and beyond, we begin to see international student inflows from other regions, including Latin America, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Let's now turn to the top places of origin. The number of Chinese students grew by 1% and continued to be the leading place of origin with 372,532 students. Chinese students in the United States have grown exponentially in the last 10 years. And this year, the increase of approximately 3,000 students was the highest of any place of origin. To the right of the graph, we see the proportions of Chinese students by academic level. Most Chinese students, 40%, studied at the undergraduate level, which decreased slightly by 1%. Students at the graduate and OPT levels increased by 3% and 2%, respectively. Next, we look at the total number of students from India, which decreased by 4%. The decline was driven by decreases in graduate students at 6% and those on OPT at 4%. 2 groups that make up most Indian students in the United States, as shown on the right. While a smaller proportion, Indian students at the undergraduate level increased by 1%. South Korean numbers continue to decrease for the 9th year at 5%, driven primarily by demographic shifts and the growing capacity of the higher education sector in South Korea. The decreases were highest at the undergraduate level at 7%, which is also the largest group of South Korean students studying here. And finally, Saudi Arabia also continued to decrease at 16.5%. This trend continues to be primarily due to the changes to Saudi Arabia's national scholarship program, reflected in a 23% decrease in the students studying at the undergraduate level. International students are welcome at U.S. campuses, classrooms, and communities across the United States. International students continued to make up 5.5% of all students in higher education, close to 20 million. This proportion has been the same for 3 years now, showing the consistent representation of international students in the overall student body. California, New York, and Texas continued to be the top 3 destinations for international students. As we include more states, We see that international students are hosted in every region across the country. U.S. higher education institutions prioritize international students, which shows in the number of institutions hosting more than 1,000 international students. Since 1999-2000, the number of these institutions has grown by 67%. As in previous years, most international students, approximately 52%, studied STEM fields, primarily engineering and math and computer science. While 1 in every 5 students majored in engineering, the overall number of engineering students decreased in 2019-20. The number of international students studying math and computer science was relatively flat and remained in the number 2 spot. We continued to see a decline of approximately 4% of international students studying business and management, though this trend improved from last year. International students in the social sciences remained relatively flat, with a modest increase of 0.1%. Further analysis shows that the composition of majors by place of origin varies. While China and India continue to concentrate in the STEM fields, other places of origin, including emerging economies such as Brazil and Nigeria, and large contributors to international students such as Saudi Arabia, have a more diverse proportion of fields of study. This may point to opportunities to diversify fields of study based on international students' interests. We also have interesting findings in fields of study by academic level. At the undergraduate level, STEM majors make up 38% of the total. When we focus on specific fields of study, we actually find that business and management is the top major at this academic level. At the graduate level, STEM majors make up more than half of all international students. This proportion grows even further among students on OPT. 68% of OPT students are STEM majors, evidence of international students' strong interest in taking advantage of the STEM OPT extension, which allows students to stay in the United States for up to 3 years. International students are significant contributors to the U.S. economy. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, international students contributed $44 billion primarily through their education funding. According to NAFSA, almost 416,000 direct and indirect jobs were created or supported by international students in 2019-20. The contributions of international students to the U.S. economy and jobs from a historical perspective cannot be underestimated. Just 20 years ago, international students contributed $9 billion to the U.S. economy. Now that number is almost fivefold at $44 billion. Similarly, the number of jobs created has grown exponentially as well. Over half of international students contributed international funding sources, particularly personal funds, to fund their education. This number is particularly high for undergraduate students who often finance their education. Before I conclude my portion today, I want to share a preliminary look we have had into fall 2020 enrollment with the 2020 Fall International Student Enrollment Snapshot. This is a survey we have conducted for 15 years now with 9 other higher education partners, many of whom are tuning into our live stream today. The snapshot provides a timely look at international students' real-time enrollment trends as of this academic year. While the snapshot is a subset of the full Open Doors International Census, it does provide trends affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. We found that 99% of responding institutions offered online instruction online only or through a hybrid model. This finding was critical and confirmed our need to collect data on international students both on U.S. campuses and those studying online, either in the U.S. or from abroad. This allowed us to estimate the level of engagement of students who are paying and pursuing education at U.S. colleges and universities. It also allowed us to capture students who may not have been able to make it to the United States this fall, but are still committed to a U.S. higher education. According to our 2020 Fall Enrollment Snapshot, International students at U.S. higher education institutions in the United States and online outside the U.S. decreased by 16% in fall 2020. Responding institutions indicated that new international students availed themselves of opportunities to begin their studies remotely when they could not travel to the United States. New international student enrollment in the United States and online outside the United States fell by 43% in fall 2020. In addition to new enrollment, 90% of institutions reported international student deferrals in fall 2020. Responding institutions reported that nearly 40,000 international students deferred enrollment to a future semester. We anticipated that despite the decline, the U.S. will remain the #1 destination globally to earn their degrees in fall 2020. Despite the challenges caused by the pandemic, we see in the 2020 fall snapshot that institutions are continuing to conduct outreach and recruitment of international students. Over half of all reporting colleges and universities report leveraging current international students, online recruitment, social media, Education USA, and international partnerships in support of outreach and recruitment. 56% of institutions are actively recruiting international students at U.S. high schools, and approximately half of all institutions indicate that they continue to prioritize outreach and recruitment in China, Vietnam, and India. Rather than stepping away from internationalization due to the immense challenges this year, our findings conclude that U.S. higher education institutions have remained committed to recruiting international students and ensuring that current students have a successful and positive experience. That concludes my portion, and I will now turn it over to Julie Baer to go over data on U.S. students studying abroad.
Thank you, Mirka, and thank you to everyone tuning in today. Today, I'm pleased to present some of the key findings from Open Doors 2020 on U.S. students studying abroad. Before delving into the data, though, I want to briefly go over information that we have captured on U.S. study abroad in our Open Doors 2020 report. We surveyed accredited U.S. higher education institutions that have study abroad programs. And the focus of our data collection is on U.S. students who are enrolled at U.S. higher education institutions who then go abroad for academic credit. I do want to note that these students studied abroad in the 2018-19 academic year, which is from fall 2018 through summer 2019. This is 1 year prior to the year Mirka was just referencing for international students. And the reason for this time lag is because we need to allow time for students to go abroad, come back home, and then be awarded credit at their U.S. institution. As Mirka also noted, the data included in this year's analysis does not yet reflect information on how COVID-19 has impacted U.S. study abroad. However, it is important to note that this information serves as a benchmark for the strong interest in study abroad prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. With this understanding of the data, I want to move on to this year's findings. In the 2018-19 academic year, we saw continued growth in the number of U.S. students who received academic credit to study abroad, bringing the number of students up to over 347,000. Here, we have compiled a full 20 years of data on U.S. study abroad for academic credit. So what have we noted? We found that the number of students pursuing study abroad has steadily increased for almost every year over this period. We see that the number of students studying abroad has more than doubled over the past 2 decades, growing from 130,000 to over 347,000 students. As we look at this growth, much of it has been driven by short-term study abroad, which are abroad experiences for a summer or 8 weeks or less. This is likely due to colleges and universities expanding opportunities to a more diverse group of students who may not have otherwise been able to study abroad. Among students going abroad, Europe continues to be the predominant destination, with over half of all study abroad taking place in Europe. To continue our understanding of the changes over the past 20 years, here we have compiled a snapshot of the number of study abroad students by world regions. I first want to draw your attention to the fact that every world region has experienced growth over the past 2 decades. As we can clearly see, Europe hosts the most U.S. study abroad students, but I want to take a moment to remove Europe and zoom into the other world regions. What stands out to me is that while these numbers may be smaller, many of the other world regions have actually experienced faster growth. While overall study abroad has doubled, the number of students going to Asia, for example, has grown 5-fold. In 1998, there were approximately 8,000 students studying abroad in Asia, which has now grown to over 40,000. Study abroad to sub-Saharan Africa has had a 4-fold increase, from only 3,300 students to nearly 13,500. And interestingly, students pursuing study abroad in multiple destinations has also nearly quadrupled, which means that an increasing number of students have had the opportunity to study abroad in more than one cultural context. When we look at the world map of where students are studying abroad, we see that the United Kingdom, Italy, and Spain were the most popular destinations in 2018-19, which is reflective of the trend we just noted of many U.S. students studying in Europe. These 3 leading destinations hosted nearly 1/3 of the U.S. students studying abroad. However, when we take a step back to look at the full map of destinations, we can see that U.S. students travel across the world to gain global perspectives with popular destinations on every continent. As of 2018-19, institutions report students studying in over 180 destinations, as can be seen here. I want to take a moment to go over some of the study abroad destinations that are not in the top 10, but have showed remarkable growth over the past 20 years. In Europe, we have noted robust growth to many of the less traditional countries, such as Greece and Denmark, which are highlighted here. 20 years ago, neither South Korea or Peru ranked in the top 25 destinations, with both countries hosting less than 500 students. As of 2018-19, South Korea ranked as the 16th leading destination with 4,500 students, and Peru ranked 19th with over 4,000 students. Ghana, which is the second most popular study abroad destination in sub-Saharan Africa, showcases an interesting phenomenon in how study abroad growth may not always be linear. As is evidenced in this chart, there was a 68% decline in study abroad to Ghana during the Ebola outbreak in 2014. However, as the health crisis abated, study abroad to the area has rebounded. Finally, Morocco in North Africa has grown 10-fold, with only 126 students pursuing opportunities for study there 20 years ago, compared with the over 1,700 students as of 2018-19. This chart highlights how student interest as well as institutional support has broadened and diversified where students are studying abroad. As study abroad experiences help students build a broad range of skills, including adaptability, self-awareness, intercultural communication, and problem solving, we have noted an increasing number of institutions that report U.S. students going abroad to Open Doors. Over the past 20 years, there has been a 19% increase in the number of institutions who have reported students studying abroad. When we look at the metric of undergraduate participation rate, which estimates the percentage of students who were able to study abroad prior to graduation, nationally, what we have seen is that about 1 in every 10 undergraduates studied abroad in 2018-19. However, when we look at this by institutional type, we see that both doctoral universities as well as baccalaureate colleges, which are your liberal arts colleges, were sending over 20% of their undergraduate students abroad. This reflects a significant institutional commitment to study abroad. I now want to turn to look at the characteristics of U.S. students studying abroad, beginning with students' fields of study. Business and management and the social sciences have long been the most popular majors for students pursuing study abroad, and they've remained so in 2018-19. What we have noticed is that over the past 20 years, there has been a focus on increasing the opportunities for students to go abroad from the STEM fields to include physical and life sciences, health professions, engineering, and math and computer science. As is evident from this chart, there has been strong growth in study abroad among students majoring in the STEM fields. Now, this growth in study abroad among STEM majors has now resulted in the STEM fields representing 27% of all U.S. study abroad. While this may seem like an excellent picture, we do need to consider what this means in the context of U.S. higher education as a whole. When we look at the overall proportion of what undergraduate students are enrolled in, almost 40% of students major in the STEM fields. So this continues to be an area for growth and focus to help make study abroad feasible and accessible to STEM majors, particularly in the fields of health and engineering, where they are underrepresented. In the profile of students going abroad by race and ethnicity, we have seen growth in the terms of diversity of U.S. students going abroad. 20 years ago, only 15% of students identified as a racial or ethnic minority student. As of the 2018-19 data, the proportion of these students has, for the first time ever, surpassed 30% of the study abroad population. However, when we compare this to the overall U.S. higher education population, 45% of all U.S. students identify as a racial or ethnic minority. So we clearly still have work to do to make study abroad opportunities available and accessible to students from all backgrounds. An excellent example of an initiative that has provided merit opportunities for study abroad is the U.S. Department of State's Benjamin A. Gilman International Scholarships Grants Program, which focuses on students with high financial need. What we have learned from the Gilman program is that programs that target students with outreach and recruitment, as well as provide funding opportunities, can very effectively diversify the students who go abroad. As you can see here, about 71% of Gilman participants come from underrepresented backgrounds. Another way that study abroad is diversifying is through the types of activities that students are pursuing. In addition to 4-credit study abroad, which is what all of my prior slides have focused on, institutions may offer non-credit study abroad opportunities, providing a wealth of unique experiences for students who may not have otherwise been able to go abroad. Open Doors has documented that as of 2018-19, there were over 38,000 U.S. students who went abroad on experiential activities who did not receive credit at their home campuses for their time abroad. We know that this number is an undercount because only 430 institutions were able to report these numbers to us. This is because when students do not get credit, it can be difficult for institutions to track this information. So we do know that this number is likely higher. We have found that the most popular activity among non-credit study abroad is spending time volunteering or on service learning trips, with 30% of students engaged in this type of activity. Other non-credit activities include work, field experiences, internships, research, conferences, or even performing arts trips abroad. As I conclude, I want to highlight the full comprehensive picture of study abroad. As of 2018-19, we counted over 347,000 students going abroad for academic credit and over 38,000 students pursuing non-credit educational opportunities abroad. In addition to the study abroad of U.S. students enrolled in the United States, we are also seeing more and more American students traveling abroad to pursue full degrees in other countries. So these are not students enrolled at U.S. institutions, but those that are going directly to other countries to gain a full degree. Through our Project Atlas work, we have been able to identify that over 53,000 U.S. students pursued full degrees abroad. This allows us to confidently note that there were over 438,000 U.S. students engaged in education abroad in 2018-19. We look forward to continuing to work with the field to capture the most complete picture of study abroad going forward. And with that, I am now going to turn this over to my colleague, Leah Mason. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. And now I will present data on global student mobility. Project Atlas was created in 2001 to put in context the Open Doors data and see how it fits in the global picture of other host countries that are attracting large number of students. Today, Project Atlas has 30 partner organizations who are part of the national data collection in their country and who share with us the information they have on international students coming to their country using the same definition that Open Doors uses. The data reported in this section of the presentation is from our Project Atlas partners. They allow us to post their data online and share with you a picture that is useful to researchers, other countries, and planners around the world who are trying to figure out how to expand their international student population. This year, we welcomed NAWA, the Polish National Agency for Academic Exchange, and the Ministry of Education in Argentina to the Project Atlas initiative. Before diving into the data, I would like to thank NAWA, the Argentina Ministry of Education, and all of the Project Atlas partners who contributed in 2020 to make this analysis possible. Thank you. According to UNESCO Institute for Statistics, the total number of international students reached 5.6 million in 2018, more than doubling over the last 20 years. As the number of students increased, so has global competition for higher education talent among leading hosts. In 2000 and today, the #1 host of international students remains the United States, hosting 20% of globally mobile students around the world, nearly twice as many as students from the next leading host country. And while the Project Atlas data show that the United Kingdom has maintained its position as second since Project Atlas began collecting data, the other leading hosts within the top 10 have changed positions over time, making evident their successful efforts to expand outreach and recruitment of international students. The top host countries are not only hosting a larger number of students, but also a greater percentage of the total number of international students. Today, the top 5 countries host more than half of the 5.6 million international students worldwide. Higher education institutions seek to attract the best and brightest to study at their institution. This chart represents capacity within each of the top destinations for international students. The red shaded part shows the percentage of international students in each country's total higher education population. In the United States, international students represent 5.5% of the total higher education population. In comparison, international students represent more than 20% of the total higher education populations in Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom. This means that the United States has a greater capacity to host international students, while other leading hosts may be limited by the size of their higher education sector. But what motivates students to enroll at a higher education institution located outside of their home country? In some countries, the limited higher education capacity drives students to other countries to seek access to a high-quality education. International students may also hope to acquire skills that are not taught in their home country. Students want to improve their employability by taking part in experiential learning, opportunities, and internships with future employers. And some students find a valuable part of their educational experience is the personal and professional growth they achieve by living outside of their home country and improving language skills. Finally, students and their parents want affordable education options that may include financial assistance and scholarship opportunities. many of the traditional push and pull factors that we look at in relation to global academic mobility remain more relevant than ever as students and institutions reassess the value of an international degree and reflect on how higher education is delivered and experienced in the COVID era. While the data presented today reflects and records mobility before the COVID-19 pandemic, the pandemic's effect on global academic mobility will be seen in time. We know today from IIE's COVID Snapshot series and similar surveys conducted by Project Atlas partners that the impact on student mobility has been felt around the world. The publications listed on this slide reflect a selection of research published by Project Atlas partners from around the world that highlight student and institutional perspectives. From this research, it is evident that U.S. higher education institutions and institutions globally stand ready to support international mobility. The Project Atlas partner research acknowledges the challenges and logistical hurdles that may hold students back in the short term as countries around the world manage changing restrictions to travel, work, and daily life. However, Project Atlas partners continue to hear from students and the institutions that host them that international students remain interested and are motivated to seek out higher education opportunities abroad. Before concluding our presentation today, we want to share with you several resources. Earlier this year, we launched the Open Doors website. It provides a new opportunity to explore, download, and share the Open Doors data. Today, all of the 2020 data has been updated and is now available. We invite you to please take a moment to explore the website and our newest data. We also want to thank the organizations that made today possible. First and foremost, we want to thank the U.S. State Department for their continued support of the Open Doors project. Please access the State Department resources noted on this slide to learn more about how you can celebrate the benefits of international education and exchange worldwide during International Education Week and connect with Education USA and USA Study Abroad. We also want to thank our many partners on Open Doors, organizations that help us review and distribute the Open Doors surveys each year. We also want to highlight our partners who worked with us on the Fall 2020 Snapshot Survey. Finally, this project would not be possible without the more than 2,900 U.S. higher education institutions that receive our survey and take the time to respond each year. Thank you. Finally, we invite you to continue the conversation. Please reach out to Open Doors for any inquiries regarding data or to discuss a custom analysis. For any press inquiries, please email press@iie.org. To join the conversation on social media, use our Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn icons located in the upper right of the screen and tag your post to ensure that Open Doors remains part of the conversation. We want to thank you for listening today, and we wish you a pleasant day.